covering the WNBA this past season, Caitlin Clark's rookie year, for all of the conversation that surrounded her, some which was fair and some which wasn't, the one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their...
International journalist Caty K has just stirred the pot in the D1 women's basketball world. In a bold move, the BBC powerhouse openly backed Caitlin Clark over Angel Reese, reigniting a fiery debate in women's sports. Kay praised Clark for her game-changing influence on the court, emphasizing how she has revolutionized the game with her unmatched skills and leadership. However, Kay's comments also downplayed Reese's contributions, sparking immediate backlash from fans and critics alike. The move has quickly escalated the drama between the two players, igniting a passionate discussion about their respective impacts on the sport. While Clark's dominance continues to be celebrated, Reese's supporters are fiercely defending her achievements. The rivalry has captivated the basketball world, with both players' legacies now under intense scrutiny. As the tension mounts, the debate is sure to take center stage in the coming weeks.
I was just about to say same thing for Angel Reese when I had a chance to cover their games, but I think Caitlin represented, and again, some of this to me probably is not fair to her because it was not anything that she said or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people, whether that is truly what she prescribed to or not. We can all.
This bold move from a global media giant underscores that Caitlin Clark's influence is making waves far beyond the USEC, igniting discussions worldwide. Kay's comments shine a light on the growing divide within women's basketball, revealing a rift that could change the trajectory of the sport in ways no one expected. As the debate intensifies, it's clear that Clark's impact is not just reshaping the game on the court, but also sparking a broader conversation about its future.
The WNBA has been around for a while. The Women's Championship has been around for a long time. You've covered the sport. You played for Georgetown. How do you account for what happened last year when suddenly as many Americans were watching the women's college basketball as they were watching the men's?
Honestly, Caty, I would venture to say that more folks were watching the women's tournament than the men's, ultimately. It's a culmination of a lot of things as I reflect on my experience as a women's basketball player and now as a member of the media.
In a recent comprehensive analysis of the meteoric rise of women's basketball, Caty K made her stance clear. She strongly emphasized Caitlin Clark's immense influence on the sport's growth, highlighting how Clark has reshaped the landscape with her remarkable skills and leadership. However, Kay gave little recognition to Angel Reese's contributions, downplaying her role in the sport's surge in popularity. This wasn't just a passing comment, it was a well-formed, bold statement. From a seasoned global journalist, Kay clearly positioned Clark as the face of the women's basketball revolution, implying that her impact outweighs that of other prominent players. The commentary has stirred a conversation, challenging the narrative and sparking debate about who truly represents the future of women's basketball.
Now, I will add the additional layer, and some folks may want to argue about this, but based on my lived experience in this country, the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson effect of it all, that is to speak of the two representations of two different worlds when you talk about Iowa and LSU, it's a culminating ingredient in how we get to this big time moment that crosses into mainstream sports conversation.
Let's dive into the details of the interview. Kay sat down with Monica McNutt, a former Georgetown basketball player and current analyst, to talk about the impressive increase in viewership for women's college basketball. They discussed the key factors driving this surge, including the rise of star players and increased media attention. The conversation also delved into the broader impact this growth is having on the sport, from fan engagement to the potential for future development. It was a deep look at how women's basketball is capturing a larger audience and shifting the landscape of college sports.
I interviewed Magic Johnson not long after, in about early last summer, and I asked him about the phenomenon of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and had they really changed the game for good? Had they changed the whole business model?
Former Georgetown player and current analyst about the rapid rise of women's college basketball. What started as a conversation on the growing viewership of the sport soon shifted into a bold declaration of who the true driving forces behind the boom are. Kay didn't just praise Caitlin Clark, she positioned her as the transformative figure behind the sport's explosive growth, asserting that Clark has reshaped the way women's basketball is marketed and perceived. In contrast, Angel Reese barely received a mention, with Kay's words clearly placing Clark at the top of the hierarchy. Kay's global perspective added weight to her stance, while many American commentators walked the line of balancing the narrative. Between Clark and Reese, Kay's outsider viewpoint was unambiguous and bold. She didn't present the rise of women's basketball as a rivalry between two players. For her, Clark is the defining force. The most striking moment in the interview came when Kay questioned whether the sport could sustain its growth once the Caitlin Clark effect fades. She referenced Magic Johnson's praise of Clark's game-changing influence, while notably not acknowledging Reese. The message was clear. In Kay's eyes, Clark is the singular catalyst for the sport's historic rise. Kay also touched on a delicate subject, Clark's demographic appeal. She compared Clark's broad reach to that of the iconic Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird rivalry, suggesting that Clark's ability to captivate diverse audiences extends beyond just her skills. It's her marketability. Kay made it clear. Clark's commercial appeal is unparalleled, and it's this factor that sets her apart from all other players. Monica McNutt, while acknowledging Clark's impact, took a more diplomatic approach, bringing up other stars like Reese, emphasizing that both players represent different fan bases. McNutt also pointed out the contrast between the fan bases of Iowa and LSU, but Kay remained steadfast. In her eyes, Clark is not just a face of the movement, she is the face. This conversation reveals the growing divide in how Clark and Reese's influence is perceived. While American media often tries to balance the praise for both players, Kay's perspective, as an outsider, made it clear that Clark's influence isn't just significant, it's defining. Kay went on to discuss the racial and cultural dynamics at play, noting how Clark, as a white player from America's heartland, has a unique ability to connect with a broader audience. She wasn't shy about pointing out how Clark's appeal transcends race, making it clear that Clark isn't just elevating women's basketball, she's revolutionizing it. Kay's take extends beyond the U.S., highlighting that Clark's influence has gone global. It would be a mistake to view Kay's analysis as dismissive of Reese's talent. Kay wasn't dismissing individual abilities, she was focused on market impact and commercial appeal. By emphasizing Caitlin Clark's unique role in the sport's meteoric rise, Kay highlighted Clark's unmatched influence. Her brilliance on the court is undeniable, but it's Clark's impact on the game's growth that truly sets her apart. Throughout the interview, Kay kept circling back to Clark's role in expanding the sport's audience. While McNutt tried to highlight the achievements of other players, including Reese, Kay stayed firm in her view that Clark is the primary driver of women's basketball's mainstream breakthrough. Unlike U.S. analysts who often navigate political and cultural sensitivities, Kay was direct and clear in her stance. She spoke with the confidence of someone who sees Clark as the global face of women's basketball. With Clark's WNBA rookie season approaching, Kay's endorsement only strengthens the consensus that Clark's stardom reaches far beyond basketball. Fans, international figures rarely comment on WNBA matters unless they recognize a cultural shift that extends beyond the sport itself. Kay made it clear, Caitlin Clark is that shift. Clark's appeal goes beyond casual basketball fans. She's attracting viewers who might never have tuned in to women's sports otherwise. The viewership for last year's NCAA tournament shattered records, drawing numbers comparable to the men's side, a clear reflection of the power Clark holds. Kay raised a critical question during the discussion. Can women's basketball sustain its growth if it relies on just one or two marquee players? This question goes straight to the heart of the WNBA's future. Is this a cultural shift that will endure, or is it merely a Clark-driven phenomenon? McNutt attempted to broaden the conversation, bringing up emerging stars like Juju Watkins and Paige Buchers, but Kay stood her ground. In her eyes, Clark has redefined the commercial expectations of the sport and drawn unparalleled attention to the game. Kay also acknowledged the unique challenges faced by female athletes in the public eye, noting how they deal with much harsher scrutiny than their male counterparts. Clark, however, has navigated these challenges with remarkable grace. Interestingly, Kay seemed surprised by the intense and at times hostile discourse surrounding Clark and Reese in the American media. From an international perspective, these debates appeared excessive. Both players have contributed greatly to the sport's rise, but Kay highlighted the fact that the focus of the conversation has shifted primarily to Clark and her unmatched influence. What stood out the most in Kay's remarks was her business-focused approach, rather than a purely Sports-centric analysis. She honed in on Clark's commercial impact, something where even Reese's staunchest supporters would likely admit Clark holds a distinct edge. Clark's influence has brought about an unprecedented level of media attention, sponsorship deals, and financial opportunities for women's basketball. Toward the end of the conversation, Kay posed a key question. How does women's basketball retain the massive influx of fans that Clark has brought in? McNutt acknowledged the challenge, noting that some fans feel alienated by the overwhelming Clark-centric narrative, while others are frustrated by the backlash against her supporters. Despite this, the conversation kept circling back to Clark, reinforcing Kay's central argument. Clark is the defining figure in women's basketball today. Kay's analysis stands in stark contrast to the more nuanced approach many American analysts take. She didn't shy away from the truth, she called it as she saw it. And in doing so, she highlighted a reality that is becoming impossible to ignore. Caitlin Clark is revolutionizing women's basketball in ways that go beyond the game itself.